Hi Karen, yeah, you're now live on YouTube.
Thank you, Dan. We have about a minute before the start of the meeting, so okay, everybody, welcome. Before we start the meeting, we are required to appoint a chairman in the absence of Councillor Iqbal, who is chairman, and Councillor Ayres, who's vice chairman. Could I please start by asking if we have a nomination for chairman for this meeting? Yes, Councillor Allen.
May I nominate Peter Hiller, Councillor Hiller, for the post of chairman for this meeting?
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder for that nomination?
I will second that, I think.
Okay, we've got two here, Councillor Joseph and Councillor Farouk, so thank you. Can I ask if we have any other nominations for chairman? No, that's wonderful. Okay, so I hereby appoint Councillor Hiller as chairman for this meeting this evening. I shall now pass over to Councillor Hiller.
So yes, thank you, Karen, and welcome members to this meeting of the Licensing Committee this evening. Thanks for the nomination of chair, and I'm happy to accept. I would like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and the press who are watching the live stream of this meeting via the Council's YouTube page. Due to government guidance, you'll be aware, on social distancing, this meeting has to be held remotely. A decision summary and minutes of the meeting will be produced in the usual way, and a recording of the meeting will be available to view on the Council's YouTube page. To enable the meeting to run in an orderly manner, I'd ask all members of the committee to keep their video cameras on for the duration of this meeting and to keep the microphone muted except when they are invited to speak. Officers will join us to introduce their reports in the usual way, and any members wishing to ask questions or make a comment should indicate this by clicking the raised hand function in the participants screen. This is the blue hand, you'll be aware. When I invite you to speak, please unmute your microphone, ask your question, and then mute it again to allow the officer to respond. As with all new arrangements, especially those involving new systems, there is always a risk that we may run into a technical issue, and I would ask for your patience if indeed we do. Should this occur, I will declare an adjournment while the fault is addressed and the public broadcast will be paused. If it's not possible to address the fault, the meeting may have to be abandoned, I'm afraid, until such time as it can be reconvened. I'll begin by doing a roll call of members of the committee, and if members can confirm their attendance, I'd appreciate it. Councillor Allen?
In attendance.
Councillor Brown? Councillor Brown?
In attendance, sure, it's not working right.
Councillor Coles?
Present, Chair, thank you.
Councillor Joseph?
Yep, present. Good evening.
Councillor Hussain? No. Councillor Ellis?
Present.
Councillor Wiggin?
Present.
Councillor Hogg?
Present.
Councillor Farouk?
Present, Chair.
And Councillor Fox. Splendid. Thank you, Councillor Fox. We also have in attendance Kerry Leishman, who's Head of Operations, Environmental Health and Licensing, Colin Miles, who's our litigation lawyer, Terry Martin, Strategic Regulatory Officer, Licensing, Gareth Brighton, Licensing and Business Manager, and members of the Democratic Services team. Do we have any apologies for absence, Karen? Item 1.
Thank you, Councillor Hiller. As I mentioned earlier, Councillor Iqbal has given his apologies and Councillor Ayres. So Councillor Brown and Councillor Farouk are in attendance as substitute. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Item 2 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Members will be aware that normally our declarations of interest are on the council's website, so if any member wishes to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest, please do by raising your virtual hand. This is in addition to what's already on the council website. Karen, do you see any hands?
I don't see any hands, Councillor Hiller.
Thank you. Thank you, members. Item 3, minutes of the meeting that we held on the 13th of February this year. We're being asked to approve the minutes of the meeting as a correct record. Can I ask for a proposer and a seconder, please?
I'm happy to propose Councillor Hiller.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Seconder? Is that you, Councillor Hogg?
I can do if you want.
Well, we need to, Councillor Hogg. So if you're
No,
prepared,
so yes, by all means.
thank you,
Happy
Councillor
to.
Hogg. Thank you. Item 4 of the Licensing Act 2003, Statement of Licensing Policy and Cumulative Impact Review, Consultation and Responses. Please, can I ask, I guess it's probably Terry, is it? That's it going to introduce. Can I ask Terry to introduce the item?
Thank you very much, Councillor Hiller. Yes, it's Terry Martin here. I'd just like to say good evening, everyone, and thank you all for being here this evening to determine the Draft Licensing Act 2003 Statement of Licensing Policy following revision and consultation. There is no doubt that the current COVID pandemic has had a dramatic effect on all of our lives. The way tonight's meeting is convened is just one of those examples. I know that members are aware of the devastating impact this has had on hospitality and entertainment industry, along with many other licence holders, due to closures and other restrictions. The following information on the Business and Planning Act is provided for information only and not matter for consideration when determining the final policy. On the 26th of July this year, in order to promote economic growth, central government introduced the Business and Planning Act 2020. This act provided a fast-track ability for premises to apply to use prescribed parts of the highway as external areas for tables and chairs. Other provisions within this Act permit premises which hold an on-licence authorisation to also authorise off-sales provisions up to 11 p.m, and for premises which have on and off sales, but where there are current conditions restricting those off sales, those conditions are temporarily suspended. The off-sales permission is only valid during times that the premises are also open for on-sales of alcohol. It is important to note that the provision does not extend to licences granted after the 26th of July this year and is of limited duration until the 30th of September 2021. This can be extended by the Secretary of State. There is also disqualifying criteria. Premises which have in the last 3 years been refused a grant or variation to include off-sales, or the licence has been varied or modified to exclude off-sales, cannot benefit from the automatic off-sale provision. As of today, there are 86 premises licensed for on-sale, of which 18 are in the CI area, and 186 premises licensed for both on and off sales, of which 19 are in the CI area, that could benefit from this temporary provision. The Act provides redress provisions in the form of an expedited off-sale review process, where it can be evidenced that the off-sale activity is having a negative impact on the licensing objectives. An expedited review allows the licensing subcommittee to impose interim steps within 48 hours, and those interim steps could be to exclude off-sales permitted by the 2020 Act. Further information on the Business and Planning Act 2020 can be found on Annex A of the draft policy, which is attached to Appendix X. The draft policy has also been updated with other legislative changes, notably the Immigration Act 2016. Since April 2017, all applicants applying for a personal licence or premises licence will be required to demonstrate that they have the right to work in the UK. Further information regarding these changes are within Section 7 of the draft policy. And with effect from April 2017, introduced by the Policing and Crime Act 2017, The licensing authority may revoke or suspend for a maximum period of 6 months a personal licence where the licence holder is convicted of a relevant or foreign offence and or required to pay an immigration penalty. This has been included as paragraph 16.7 of the draft policy, and the table of delegations within section 21 has been updated to reflect this change. From reading the report, members will be aware that it is the officer's recommendation for the current cumulative impact policy to be modified. The current CIP, cumulative impact policy, relates to all types of new or variation applications. However, the evidence obtained during the consultation period suggests premises which are solely on sales or provide late night refreshment only are not a contributing factor to the problems and issues identified. Therefore, the recommendation is that the SIP be modified so that it is only applicable to new or variation applications which request the off sales of alcohol within the current defined CI boundary. The reasons for this recommendation are detailed within section 8 of the report, but I will briefly summarise. Members will note that responses to the consultation from residents in the area report that off-sales premises are identified as the attractive cause of many of the issues reported. Residents' lives are being disrupted by incidents in the street, such as late night disturbance, antisocial behaviour and litter. The data provided by the Police, Public Health and Peterborough Enforcement Team also supports the modification of the SIP to that recommended by the officers. The licensing authority must ensure that the SIP remains relevant to the current problems identified with the SIP boundary. As the evidence obtained during the consultation process indicates that the current problems relate to premises with off sales, it is recommended that the SIP be modified to this effect. Since the SIP has been in effect, applications determined by the licensing subcommittee have been carefully considered. See summary in section 5.5 of the report. Members are not just granting or refusing applications, but have been listening to the concerns raised by objectors and tailoring conditions specific to the activity which is of concern. For example, the subcommittee, when determining a new off-licence application at 282 Lincoln Road, they restricted the hours, and the following conditions, amongst others, were added to the premises licence when issued. And those were, there would be no sale of alcohol without the purchase of food, and for the purpose of this condition only, confectionery was not considered to be food. No alcohol shall be sold before 12 noon. No more than 10% of the shop floor shall be given over to the sale of alcohol. No beer or cider over 5.5 ABV shall be sold, and cans of alcohol shall not be sold singly. Those are an example of where members can tailor conditions to the application and the concerns raised. Thank you for listening. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Terry, for your very clear address. Members, before there's any debate over this item, if you do have any questions, can I ask you just to raise your virtual hand, and I will ask the Democratic Services Officer to call your name out and ask your question to the relevant officer. Do you have any questions for the officers, members? Karen?
We have Councillor Coles.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Karen. This question, I suppose, relates to the Candu area boundary, and having looked in some depth at the analysis from the police, pages 67 to 69 of the report, there's an element of PE12A that currently stands outside the boundary, where there appears to be licensed premises and some incidents as well. I take it from the report we're not considering the change of the boundary, but considering we have to remain relevant, is there a possibility that we might need to consider that area to come within the SIP area? Thank you.
Sorry, I don't have that particular map in front of me. Is that the area that is onto the Bulges Boulevard area? That's the area in question.
Yeah, it's that little tongue of colour that appears on all the chloroplasts that the police have sent to us.
Yeah, there are a couple of licensed premises in that area, but most of the problems in that area are not really tied to the premises. They relate to other matters from what I can understand, and not really for consideration. It's not those premises that are selling the alcohol that are causing the problem. It's people are going there. Those areas are used for many different activities, and I think the police have. It's like rallies and car meets and things like that, and it's those sort of other issues that are also. But the SIP is reviewed every 3 years, so the boundary can be reviewed if that continues to be a problem in that area.
Yes, thank you. And it is my other pet subject, of course, of car cruising and the impact in the area. So I was interested whether that was the case, and it wasn't actually to do with licensed premises. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Terry. Karen? Do we have anybody else that wishes to ask officers a question?
Yes, we did have Councillor Joseph. Did you have a question?
Councillor Joseph?
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate, Terry. So obviously I appreciate that the modification specifically deals with on sales. So to all intents and purposes, the rules and regulations around the off sales that have been in place for the past period that the SIP's been in place are still in place. These modifications realistically only affect on sales, yeah?
Sorry, are you talking about the amendment to the cumulative impact, the modification that we're proposing?
Yeah.
So the modification we're proposing is that any application within the defined boundary that requests an off sale will be subject to the cumulative impact policy. So if an application came in and it was for on sale only, the SIP wouldn't apply. But not having a SIP does not mean that people in the community could not object.
Okay.
So it can still be objected to. It's just reliance on the SIP in that scenario wouldn't be applicable.
Yeah, but in terms of the off sales, they're under the same rules as they were before. We're not changing those.
No.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry, and thank you, Councillor Joseph, for your question. I can't see any more hands. Karen, can you see anybody?
No, we have no more hands, Councillor Hiller.
Okay. Okay, if there are no more questions, I'll move to the debate. If you have anything you wish to say or any comment that you wish to make about this item, could you please raise your hand as before, and I will ask Karen Dunleavy to ask you to debate and say what it is you wish to say. I can't see any hands, Karen.
I don't see any hands.
Okay. Okay, if we're not wishing to debate, I have to assume that we all completely understand what Terry Martin has outlined in her address. I thought it was very clear and straightforward. So I don't have anything to say on this. Can I just ask if members agree with the recommendations? And the recommendations are, we'll be aware, is that recommendation 1 is to modify the current cumulative impact policy, CIP as it's popularly known, so that it is only applicable to applications new and variation which request off sales of alcohol as part of the authorised activities, and revise and republish the cumulative impact assessment, CIA, in line with this decision. And the second recommendation for us this evening, members, is the adoption of the final statement of licensing policy, Appendix 10. Is it Appendix 10 or Appendix X?
Apologies, it's Appendix X.
Fine, it's my Latin from school days. To the full council on the 9th of December 2020. If there is any dissension, it's probably easier that we do it this way. If there's any dissension, can you indicate now? No? Do you wish to go through the whole? Do you wish to go through the individual vote, Karen, or would that be good enough?
I think as everybody, there's nobody objecting to this. This would mean that the recommendations as moved in the report are now carried.
Splendid. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. And thank you all members. The recommendation is therefore agreed. So I think that's our business done for the evening, isn't it, Karen?
It is. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Thank you for attending this evening. Thank you, our officers who've done a cracking job on this, especially Terry for her address. I thought that was very clear and concise. Thank you for that, Terry. And good evening, one and